Tennessee's going to play Ohio State in the college football playoffs, and these teams are more similar than they are different. I'll explain here on a Tuesday at Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome into it, Locked On Vols. And we're free and available wherever you get your podcast. You everydayers, this show is for you. Mailbag edition of the week coming up in segments 2 and 3. I'll answer your questions to the best of my abilities. Before that, though, we're going to get a first glance at Ohio State, the Buckeyes. Again, that game's not this weekend. It's not until next Saturday, but Tennessee's in the playoffs. So let's get our first look at who Ohio State truly is. That's coming up here on a Tuesday show. Big shout out to our friends over at FanDuel, where you can win a big return at FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, all you need to do is visit FanDuel.com to go ahead and get started today. So, Tennessee and Ohio State, more similar than they are different, in my opinion. Obviously, the similarities, both teams are 10-2. One team is the 9 seed, one team is the 8 seed. So they're kind of right there. They got two coaches who are very entrenched and very settled into what they're trying to accomplish. They're two teams in terms of who's had a similar 2024 path. Ohio State did get the nod and is hosting over Tennessee because they've beaten two teams in the top 10, whereas Tennessee's beaten Alabama, who failed to make the field. And so that's kind of the committee's reasoning for allowing Ohio State to host instead of the Volunteers. But when you look at these two teams, both teams have a very good run game. Both teams have a quarterback who can make things happen. Both teams have a defense that is really, really great at stopping the run. How similar? I'll get to that here in a moment. Both teams have a defense who are going to be each other's greatest challenge of the year to date. It's kind of good on good, big on big in certain situations. Like you've got NFL wide receivers for Ohio State, and you've got Tennessee cornerbacks who are really, really good. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm intrigued to see kind of how some of these matchups are going to look like. You look at Ohio State, from the onset, and it's a team, again, that, 1-2, punch in the backfield, Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, who are really, really solid. Will Howard, transfer coming in this offseason, has done a solid job for them. They have 2 separate 5-game winning streaks on the season. Strength of schedule's pretty good. Their only loss, one of their 2 losses came to Oregon. And then, of course, a 3-point disappointment at home to Michigan. But nonetheless, Ohio State is really, really solid. So you look at Ohio State offensively, and it's a team that scores 35 points a game. They average 423 yards of total offensive contests, 254 yards on average through the air, 169 yards on average on the ground. And they're converting third downs at 42%. They're scoring touchdowns in the red zone at 77%. So all those are pretty efficient numbers. They've turned the football over 12 times, throwing 8 interceptions and having 4 fumbles lost. Will Howard, who I mentioned a moment ago, solid year, 2,860 yards, 27 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 72% completion, which is really, really solid. He's also scored 7 times on the ground. So he's not a guy that's a straight dual threat, but he is a guy that you've got to respect on the ground, very much like a Nico Iamaleava, right? I think Nico's more athletic, but Nico's a guy that is not a straight dual threat, but a guy that can make things happen on the ground. Will Howard, with his 7 rushing touchdowns, very much in that same conversation. He's averaging 238 yards through the air a contest. I mentioned that 1-2 punch on the ground in terms of the run game. Really, really solid. Quinshon Judkins, formerly of Ole Miss. Travion Henderson, the incumbent running back for Ohio State. Judkins leads the program with 805 yards, 147 carries, 5.5 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown, while Henderson has got 751 yards on the ground, 7 yards per carry, 6 touchdowns, and 19 receptions through the air. Again, those two are very, very similar. Those two are almost even on the stat sheet, and Ohio State has flourished with both those guys in the backfield. Look at Jeremiah Smith, a wide receiver. He is an NFL guy, knocking on the door of 1,000-yard receiving, 934 yards on the year, 10 touchdowns. Emeka Egbuka leads the team with 60 receptions, 743 yards receiving, 9 touchdowns. Carnell Tate, Tate, 41 catches, 583 yards. Brandon Inus, 12 receptions, 151 yards. A couple of tight ends get involved, but what you need to know is Ohio State has legit NFL talents on the exterior. And they always have, dating back to last year and dating back to years before. That's going to be quite a challenge for Tennessee's secondary. But you look at the offensive line struggles. We touched base on that a little bit. You heard from Jay yesterday. Still, they've only given up 12 sacks on the season. 12 sacks on the season, and they're averaging 5 yards per carry. So you flip it over defensively, and this is what they kind of hang their hat on, right? They're averaging 10.9 points per game. It's really, really good. They're averaging only 241 yards of offense the other way. That is really, really good. 144 yards through the air, 96 yards on the ground. So where Tennessee ranks 8th in the country in rush defense, giving up 99.6 yards per game, Ohio State ranks 7th in the country, giving up 96.8 yards per game. Again, Tennessee and Ohio State very, very similar in terms of what they give up on the ground. Really, really talented up front. JT, Tamalu, Jack Sawyer, Talik Williams, all those guys up front. The first two on the edges. Sony Styles and Cody Simon are really, really good linebackers at the second layer. Caleb Downs, formerly of an SEC player. Denzel Burke, Davison Igbenson. Tennessee was after him in terms of recruiting a couple years ago. Defense is really, really sound. Defense is solid, and they don't make a whole lot of mistakes. They're allowing opponents 33% on third downs, 34% of touchdowns inside the red zone, which is a really, really good number. Again, opponents, when they reach the red zone, are scoring only touchdowns on a 34% of the time. That is really, really good. And, of course, Ohio State has forced 17 turnovers, picking the football off 9 times, and, corralling a fumble on the ground 8 times. So Ohio State is very, very similar to what Tennessee is. What's going to be the difference maker? I can't wait to see what Jamal McCoy does against Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and Inus and Ibuka as well. I'm intrigued to see what Ricky Gibson can do. Will they man up and follow guys around the formation? Will they stay on one side or the other? Boo Carter's going to have to come in. Christian Harrison's going to have to come in and have a really, really solid game. Tennessee's safeties are going to have to keep everything in front of them. Linebackers are going to have to get collision on the wide receivers and kind of try to knock them off their route a little bit. But most importantly, it is the defensive line for Tennessee that is going to have to generate a pass rush. It's the defensive line for Tennessee that is going to have to make things difficult for Will Howard, where Tennessee's defensive line did no such thing against Carson Beck and the Georgia Bulldogs. So I'm intrigued to see what those matchups are. Plus, I'm intrigued to see how Dylan Sampson kind of goes about trying to get some yards against the 7th best rush defense in the country. So far, Dylan Sampson has passed every single test he's took. Tennessee's offensive line in terms of run blocking has passed every single test they've took. I'm intrigued to see if that can continue, and there's no reason to believe it won't continue. But if Tennessee can run the football effectively on offense, just wait for Nico to cook, in my opinion. Caleb Webb, who's in the transfer portal for Tennessee, he shared a story from the University of Tennessee on the football account on Instagram and said, Nico legacy game coming up. What a time for that legacy game to happen, right? This is why you go and you invest in quarterbacks in the transfer portal, to come and play in games like this. Games at Georgia, games against Alabama at home, games in the college football playoff. Go get it. I'm so excited to see what this Tennessee offense and defense can look like against a really similar but really, really good Ohio State ball club. So we'll continue looking at Tennessee and Ohio State up until kickoff. That's not this weekend. That is next weekend. But so many different storylines to pay attention to, and we'll do it right here on Locked On Vols. Hey, everydayers, your time to shine. Mailbag questions coming up as we continue on here on a Tuesday, Locked On Vols. I want to tell you guys about my friends over at FanDuel. You can get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. New customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every single moment more on the safe, secure, easy-to-use app, and where you can make every moment more. That is FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, guys, let's get back into it. Let's answer some mailbag questions. We do it every single Tuesday right here on Locked On Vols, and I really, really do appreciate you guys for sending in those questions at _Kane on Locked On Vols and, of course, on the YouTube channel. We'll start on the YouTube channel. A couple of guys who have submitted questions and gals on the YouTube channel. We'll go with Wyatt Farms here. I assume the transfer portal players that are leaving are not eligible to play in the playoff games, correct? They are taking away from our depth, but at the same time, if they plan to transfer, do they really want to be here and contribute anyway? Let me just invite you into the weirdness of college football 2024, right? You had a quarterback for Georgia who couldn't move his arm, hand off to a running back who is in the transfer portal to win the SEC championship over the weekend. Trevor Etienne is in the transfer portal, right? I mean, or he's at least announced that his declaration is to enter the transfer portal. I know it's officially open. That's just how weird we are in college football right now. But it's a case-by-case thing. Obviously, Georgia, with the injuries they have at running back, they need Etienne to go and win games right now. So I would assume they said, hey, if you want to continue playing, then continue playing. Go try to help us win a national championship. You know, for Tennessee so far, at the time of this recording, you got Caleb Webb, Khalifa Keith, you've got Jalen Smith, you've got Jordan Matthews, Bison Lang, guys who have announced their intentions of entering the transfer portal. Jalen Smith is really the only one that plays that kind of a key role, and he's a role player on defense. So it'll be a case-by-case thing. I don't have the answer to that right now, but yes, they are eligible to play, and they can play. But a lot of times it's in the best interest for them to not, or it's in the best interest of the team to say, hey, come on, you can leave, but we need you to finish your commitment here and kind of help us go win a national championship. It's kind of awkward, but it's the new norm. It is the new norm. So it's truly a case-by-case thing. But yes, they are eligible to play if they want to, and if the coaching staff wants them. Carla says many wide receiver and running backs have dropped Nico's passes in non-inclement weathers this year. What must Tennessee do in the snow against OSU? There is no dome in the horseshoe. Yeah, and who's to say it's going to snow, right? I mean, on Sunday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time, it was 51 degrees in Columbus. That's not bad. Now, will it be 51 degrees on December 21st? I don't know. Will it be 27 degrees like it was against Michigan in Ohio State's final home game? I don't know. We'll see. Will it be snowing? Will it be clear weather? I don't know. We'll see. You're right. There's no dome there. But I kind of wrote a story kind of making fun of some members of the media, and also, I mean, I guess I was adding to it because I wrote the story. It's not like Tennessee plays in South Beach. It's not like Tennessee's not worn cold gear this year. It's not like the mountains of the Appalachia are on the southern tip of Florida Keys. You know, it's like Tennessee knows what cold weather is. Excuse me. And Ohio State, it's not like it's forever away. Okay, it's not going to be that different, I feel like, in my opinion. Now, you got to prepare for the cold. It will be cold, in my opinion, and you just got to go out there and do that. But, you know, for Tennessee, you just got to run the football. Do what you do best. Run the football, run the football, run the football. Find success running the football, and then build your offense off that, especially when elements are where you want them to be. Rocky Top Tom says, I feel like if UT doesn't commit unforced mental errors, penalties, and turnovers, we really can play with anyone in the country. But is it more important that we have a mistake-free ball game on the road against Ohio State than they just having a bad day like they did against Michigan? Well, I would take both. You can never bank on a team having just a bad day like they did against Michigan. Obviously, Ohio State is much better than how it played against Michigan. But it had a horrible day. You can't bank on that to happen again. You certainly can't bank on that to happen 2 games in a row, in my opinion. You need to bank on yourself playing, you're not going to play penalty-free football. That's just not who this team is. This team has a whole lot of penalties, but can you control the unforced errors? Yes, you can. Lining up offsides, false starts, procedural penalties. You can control all of those things. I don't think you're just going to flip a switch and Tennessee's going to be a clean football team, because it's not. It never has been under Josh Heupel. But the mental errors, absolutely. The unforced errors, absolutely. Those penalties, you can control that. So try and clean that up a little bit. And I think it's more important to have that type of ball game than just wait and expect for Ohio State to play bad, in my opinion. All right, we'll go to David. What is the benefit? Excuse me. What is the benefits for a kid to go in the portal when their team is going to the playoffs? The team they transfer to might not even get there. That's true, but for a kid, it's all about a business decision. It's about doing what's best for that individual player. You know, that's why, like, the portal wasn't even open until Monday, but last week you saw all these announcements like, hey, I'm going to enter the portal, hey, I'm going to enter the portal, so you can get on teams' radars. So if you have an agent, they can start working backroom deals because, yes, that is very much evident and relevant, and that happens everywhere in the country. So you need to do what's best for you. You need to get your name out there, get your name in circulation, and allow yourself to be on the big boards for other teams so that when you can make it official, you can go make it official. Again, like I said a couple of questions ago, it's up to the coaching staff, it's up to the program, the university, if they want to allow players to continue to play, even though they announce their intentions to enter the transfer portal or they're in the transfer portal, or it's up to the kid. The kid might just say, deuces, I'm out. And you know, school obligations are done. What more do they have to owe the university, right? Even though they made a commitment to play football, but that doesn't mean a whole lot anymore. So that's kind of how I'd answer that. We'll answer one more, and then we'll get into a final segment here. Rob says, got two questions for you. Number one, how would you fix the mess that we call the playoffs? I think there's another question about this down the line, but simply put, you know, they're going to expand it. I'm fine with having some buys, but you've got to get rid of the automatic buys, okay? I'm fine with conference champions getting in. I'm fine with the 5 highest ranked conference champions getting an automatic berth. But in terms of the buys, you should just seed them 1 through 4, okay? The only caveat to that is I wholeheartedly love the fact that Notre Dame can never get a bye in this format because Notre Dame does not belong to a conference. Therefore, Notre Dame does not have an opportunity to be a conference champion. And I just think that's awesome. You want to join the rest of the world, join a conference. They never will because the money they get, TV deals are not worth it, but join the conference is kind of what I'd say. But that's what I would change. I would change the buys going to the top 4 ranked teams in the rankings, not the highest ranked conference champions. That's got Arizona State should not be getting a bye. Boise State, though I think it's a great story, and I think Boise State's a pretty good team, should not be getting a bye. Arizona State, for sure, should not be getting a bye. That's what I would change. Question number 2, how do you see the matchup between our running game and their rush defense? I think that's a huge factor in this game. Absolutely. There's no reason, as I said earlier, there's no reason to believe that Tennessee can't run the football in Ohio State. I understand Ohio State is salty. I understand Ohio State is pretty daggone good in that regard. But Tennessee has rushed for over 2,700 yards this year. Dylan Sampson, in my opinion, there's one running back in the country that's better than Dylan Sampson this year, and that's Ashton Genty. Dylan Sampson's been incredible, okay? So there's no reason for me to believe that Tennessee won't be able to run the football on Ohio State. And Tennessee needs that run game to be relevant because Nico can build off that run game. You can respect that run game. It opens up the RPO, the read option. It opens up everything down the field. The play action. Look at Vanderbilt again. Tennessee runs so much play action, okay? But I pointed it out after the Vanderbilt game. All 4 of Tennessee's touchdown passes for Nico came off play action. Those safeties bit because Dylan Sampson is so good. So, yeah, Tennessee's going to have to run the football. No ifs, ands, buts about it. Hey, when we come back, we'll continue in your questions, comments, and concerns right here as we continue on with a Tuesday Locked On Vols. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite, and right now you can save an unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, score an extra $30 off if you put in that promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packaging featuring gourmet favorites. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and so much more, save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners, an extra $30 off with the promo code COLLEGE. What a deal. That is 50% off at OMAHA, omahasteaks.com. An extra $30 off with the promo code college. Minimum purchase may apply. All right, guys, we got a final segment left here of this Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. We'll jump back into the mailbag questions. So, pumpkin or cherry pie? That is from Jonathan. Neither. I don't like cherry pie, and I definitely don't like pumpkin pie. Give me Hershey bar pie or give me the good old-fashioned apple pie and vanilla ice cream because I love this country. Justin says, are the freshmen early enrollees able to go through practice and travel? I know they could with bowl games in the past. Wasn't sure if the playoff was any different. I've talked to some people, and I believe that is the case. I think I'll confirm that, but I have spoken with some people, and I do believe that they can practice, certainly, and they can travel. So early enrollees are going to be on site for the bowl game, just like a normal bowl game, like last year in the Citrus Bowl. I remember Miles Kitzelman. I remember some of the early enrollees, freshmen like Kellen Lindstrom. They were on hand taking part in everything Tennessee did in the Citrus Bowl, and I think that's the same case here for the playoffs. Let's go to Kurt. Regardless of opponent and weather, home or away, do you think 3 weeks off for the Vols is more helpful or harmful for the team? Obviously helps a lot of players to get healthy, but Nico was playing his best ball of the season, so I hate losing all that momentum. Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I hate losing that momentum as well, but to your point, and you brought it up, it's a chance for everybody to get healthy. So wholeheartedly, I think this is a good thing for Tennessee. We'll see if Squirrel White can go, but getting Dante Thornton rest up, ready to roll, getting, other guys, Brew McCoy rest up, ready to go, Dylan Sampson, who's been battered and bruised all season long, 100%. I think this is a great opportunity for those guys to heal, get their bodies feeling right a little bit, and see what happens. Nico was playing his best ball. No ifs, ands, buts about it. You hope that Nico can continue to carry that over, but I think it's a much, much better situation to be in than having to go straight into the playoffs. We'll go to JT. While I would like a home game, I see this as a huge opportunity to put the Tennessee can't win on the road narrative to rest. Do you agree with that or think that that would survive regardless? No, absolutely not. If Tennessee goes on the road and beats Ohio State in the college football playoff in late December in chilly weather in front of a 102,000 plus seat Ohio Stadium where the Tennessee football allotted tickets were 3,500, and Tennessee wins that game, yeah, that narrative needs to be put to rest. I understand there are more losses in this situation than wins, but this stage is bigger than any other game Tennessee's had. Yes, Tennessee on the road in Athens a month ago was huge. This stage is bigger. Right? Why? Because this is the college football playoffs. So if Tennessee goes on the road and wins and prevails, then that narrative needs to be put to rest, because the biggest game ever in this situation, Tennessee in this scenario would have won that game. So yeah, I think that's going to be a huge narrative the next 2 weeks. I think that and the cold weather are going to be the two biggest storylines working against Tennessee. Tennessee can't win on the road, and Tennessee can't play in the cold. I think those are going to be massive storylines in this football game. Hunter says the Vols held their first 9 opponents to under 20 points, only the 5th SEC team since 2000 to hold each of its first 7 opponents to under 20 points. The previous 4 teams all won national championships: 2003 LSU, 2011 Alabama, 2012 Alabama, and 2021 Georgia. Is it time to buy in? This is our year. We'll see, man. We'll see. Tennessee defense is fantastic, and I'll take Tennessee defense on any other defense in the country. I'll ride with Tim Banks and them boys more than I'll ride with anybody else. They've proven that to me this year, for sure. I'm not going to claim a national championship, but is it time to buy in? Heck yeah, it's time to buy in. Your team's in the college football playoff. What are you waiting on, right? There's no sense in saying, well, I don't trust this team, or this team's going to get beat when it counts. Tennessee's already worked through the regular season, 10 wins, 2 losses. You're in the college football playoffs. You have a quarterback that can make all the plays. You have an all-SEC running back. You have an all-American cornerback in Jamal McCoy, in my opinion. You got a top 10 defense in the country. Buy in. Absolutely buy in. Will it be enough? Will Tennessee win a national championship? I don't know. If Tennessee wins the national championship, the conversation becomes bigger, because the path that the Vols would have had to gone through to do that, on the road at Ohio State, Rose Bowl against Oregon, the number 1 ranked team, and then whoever else Tennessee would face after that. Got to win this game first, but Yeah, I mean, it's a bigger conversation if Tennessee were to win the national championship. Dylan says, what is your opinion on what would the best format and setting be for the playoffs? Personally, I'm fine with conference champions getting a bid, and I feel like they should do matches based on ranking. Do you think that would be the routes to make it certain teams? Do you think this would make the route for certain teams easier? 100%. And I agree wholeheartedly with what you just said, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier. There's no reason that Arizona State should have a cakewalk. There's no reason that Boise State should be. There's no reason that the number one ranked team in this bracket is going to be awaiting teams like Tennessee or Ohio State when Boise will be awaiting a winner of Penn State and SMU. When Georgia will be awaiting a winner of Indiana and Notre Dame, which I think both those teams are kind of overrated. Yes, I wholeheartedly go back to what you just said and what I said earlier. I have no problems with conference champions getting a seat at the table. I have a problem with the 4 highest ranked getting that bye. It should just go off rankings. Let's go to Jared. Do you think the committee was simply politicking the last night before the final rankings? Made no sense to have Tennessee not host Penn State. Seemed like they simply wanted to create new matchups across the board, not have any first-round matchups, and set up second-round matchups. I think strength of schedule, simply put, was not taken into consideration at all for this committee. I think head-to-head matchups and results were picked and chosen on when they wanted to matter for this committee. Sure, I think deep down the committee didn't want rematches, but you can only avoid that for so long, right? I just think it's never a perfect system. I think the committee is in an impossible task at certain times, but that doesn't excuse them from being stupid. You know what I'm saying? Blind resumes. Again, let's play the blind resume. You knew wholeheartedly Tennessee was not going to be ranked ahead of Penn State. You just knew, especially when Penn State scored 37 points against the number one ranked team in the country and barely lost the Big Ten championship. You knew Penn State was not going to slide behind Tennessee. But if you do blind resumes, Tennessee's resume is hands down better than that of Indiana. Okay? If you do blind resumes, Tennessee, Texas, Tennessee's resume is better than that of Texas. If you do blind resumes, Tennessee, Indiana, which Tennessee's already had, Tennessee's resume is better. So I just think they need it's a moving target, okay? Because what matters this year might not matter next year. Strength of schedule at some point is going to matter. It didn't this year. But will it matter next year? Will it matter in 2 years or in 3 years? Are ADs afraid to play big non-conference matchups? Alabama's AD was crying the other day, and he was doing his job, I understand that, but he was talking about how, we're not going to play anybody out of conference. Oh, well, the murderer's row of Mercer, USF, and Western Kentucky. Oh, yeah, Wisconsin on the road. Sure, on paper that looks nice, but Wisconsin was the 12th ranked team in the Big Ten. They finished 5-7. Did those games cause you to lose to Tennessee on the road? Did those games cause you to be upset on the road at Vanderbilt and to get absolutely destroyed at a bad Oklahoma? No, they did not. That was all you, bud. That was all Alabama. So that's kind of how I view that. Anyway, a couple more questions here. I need to work fast. Nate says, how is no one talking about Georgia losing Carson Beck and SMU still being included in the playoffs solidifies that playing in conference championships are not worth the reward? I'll hit on Carson Beck real quick. You're right. FSU was such a talking point last year, not the same team without its quarterback. Georgia was never going to fall out. Of course, they won the game, but should they have been the number 2 seed because they lost their quarterback, right? I mean, what's the long-term status of Carson Beck? I don't know. We'll see, but Carson Beck might not be playing in the playoffs. That is a huge issue that nobody is talking about. The committee, I don't even think mentioned one time on Sunday. For fun, college football playoff matchups and a quick overall bracket analysis this year, if the top 4 teams were given a bye, the 4 through 8, hosting, not, all that type of stuff. That sounds like a fun conversation for another day. I don't have time to do it right now, but you're absolutely right. If they did the seeding based on true ranking and not all those qualifiers, I think that would be a whole lot of fun. Ball and Archie, first comment, no home playoff game. Doesn't matter. We are winning the whole damn thing. Vols by 50, regardless of the opponent. I love that. I think the run game will play a big part in the matchup. How do you see our backs doing up against their rush defense? Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. I'm not doubting Dylan Sampson at all because he's given me absolutely no reason to doubt Dylan Sampson. It will certainly be a challenge, though. Let's go to Banks. Will the early enrollees be on campuses and practice? Yep, I just answered that a moment ago. They will. And yeah, I think that is it. Trevor? Yes, okay, here we go. Trevor. Last one goes to Trevor. First of all, I'm married into a very enthusiastic Ohio State family, so prayers for our Christmas. Yeah, prayers up, buddy. So far in your research of Ohio State, what is one area of concern you see for each team? I don't know. I'll have to think about area of concern for Tennessee because I want to give a right answer, and I'm a little scatterbrained right now. But I'll tell you one area of concern for Ohio State is 100% that offensive line. Jay painted the picture yesterday. I've talked with some people early in the week. The injury to the center, the Remington Award finalist, he's been out a couple weeks. Starting left guard, he's been out a couple of weeks. They're having to pick and choose and move guys around. That offensive line is battered and bruised and not 100% and hurting. And we know about Tennessee's defensive line. So what an opportunity for Rodney Garner's group. What an opportunity for Tennessee's defensive line to get after it. All right, guys, appreciate you so much for joining us here on a Tuesday Locked On Vols. Little under the weather, working through some sickness here in this household. So if I sound a little hoarse, if I'm coughing, I do apologize. You guys know it is that time of the year. Tennessee and Ohio State, boy, what a matchup. We'll continue to preview that. We'll look at the number 1 ranked Tennessee basketball team. How about that? We'll look at Tennessee basketball tomorrow. We'll talk with Josh Ward. All that and more is coming up on a Wednesday Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys as always. This is Locked On Vols.